instance, in that instance, that I think was what was not most concerned, but what was something that often happens when projects are taken under where the full understanding of the building may not be evident due to, we encounter this a lot actually, due to interior finishes or because they're covered in stucco or various reasons, where what the original plan is doesn't always get executed to its fullest because of site conditions that remained unknown at the time. So recommendations that I have as suggestions going forward would be that I think a detailed conservation strategy outlining approaches for individual CDEs would be recommended for any future future projects that are undertaken, to clearly understand what the CDE is, what its condition is, and what approach is being taken to it would be helpful. Interventions that are clearly detailed on the drawings and in specifications are always recommended. The information provided on the drawings in comparison to other projects where we've been working on them was more limited on the drawing package that was provided than what we've seen on other projects. So that's always helpful because, again, it clearly illustrates what work is being done and how that approach is. Is it rehabilitation, restoration, preservation, etc.? Review of the drawings with standards and guidelines in mind is always recommended. A review of the whole project with standards and guidelines in mind is always recommended. This might be done by perhaps the commission's staff members. It can be done by a third party. We've had it in all different scenarios when we've worked on projects in the past. I did get a sense that improved communication of changes to the conservation strategy, as well as progress on site, and just general updates would have been additionally helpful. So overall, improved communication would be ideal. And often on projects we are engaged in, we recommend having final review of the conservation work that's being undertaken to ensure it aligns with what was proposed at the beginning, or if it doesn't, then having an understanding of where it deviated from and why. Oh, wait, change. Oh, no, go the other way. There is one more slide. There we go. And then one final wonderful archival image of the cottages in Crippen Park. Oh, goodness. I guess we'll stop sharing my screen. Hold on. How do I stop sharing my screen? Stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, right along the board.
Cool. Okay, so I'm wondering if any of the commission members have some questions for Chelsea?
Questions, comments, suggestions for the report, all are welcome.
I have some questions, but I'm just waiting to see if anybody else from the table. No? Okay, so first question is, when Don Luxon and Associates actually went on site and looked around, I believe it was cottage 14, but there was an issue at one point was something that was not an interior feature, a fireplace. It was not listed as a character defining element. Do you know if that fireplace was still in place at the point that your team went to assess the situation, or was that already removed?
To my recollection, it was already removed. You're correct, it's not identified as a character defining element, which is what was guiding the comments on the project. To my recollection, it was already removed at that time. At the time that I visited to the site.
That's what I figured, but just thought I'd get that confirmed. The other question I had is that one of the when you came to us in March, I guess, of 2024, I guess, there had been some discussion about how Metro Vancouver had said really we didn't have the authority to require a heritage inspection because we lacked a certain bylaw, and I can't remember which one they quoted. It was probably something different than a heritage protection bylaw, but it was something like that. And we had some conversation during that Zoom about how that's something that you guys could comment on in the report in terms of if there's something missing, you could let us know and make part of the. I got the impression that part of the scope of the report could be some content regarding that, and there actually are a few bullet points in the recommendations about the possibility of having a development permit area that would allow staff review and commission review, and also having a heritage protection bylaw adopted by council was one bullet point, I believe, as well. And we didn't see really any elaboration of content in the report. And so we were a little bit disappointed about that. It is the view of John Luxton Associates that that's outside of the scope of the report, or is that something that could be added before a final report is done?
We can certainly look at adding something along those lines, or at least providing some guidelines as to how to have one crafted. I think also there needs to typically when DLA is brought in on projects, it's on projects that have been, or on sites that have been designated, or sites that are in the process of being designated as part of the proposed work. My understanding for Davies, for the cottages, is that they're on, they're listed, however, they're not legally protected. Is that the correct understanding still?
That's correct. We don't have a designated site on Bowen Island.
Right.
Yeah, one that's protected by a covenant. Yeah.
Yeah, so the covenants are in place. Yeah, so we can certainly look at drafting a bylaw or providing guidelines for the ability to put something like that together for future projects that are being undertaken on the site, or on Bowen Island, pardon me, not on the site itself.
Yeah, and just to be clear, what would be great is if we had all the tools we need immediately in the toolbox. I think there's some assumption council and even among the commission members that we got a register in place and approved by council, and now we have everything we need. And we're finding that we may be missing some pieces, and when we need them, we won't have them. So what are the key? So if we could, kind of have a list of what the key potential pieces are to complete the the work chest, and then maybe examples of appropriate wording for those bylaws, particularly from communities like Bowen. So some may be more appropriate to larger communities and others to smaller. That would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, we've certainly put some together for some heritage strategy planning that we've done in Alberta, in smaller communities like Vulcan, as well as in Medicine Hat, and some of those smaller, Medicine Hat's a bit bigger, but we've certainly put together packages for them that they can use to implement as they're working through protecting and working with the alteration or redevelopment of their sites that they've had to deal with. So I can certainly go back and look and compile something that could then be used by yourselves in relation to Bowen Island.
Would that be part of the final report, or yeah?
Yeah, we can craft something as part of that. I think that's reasonable.
How much work is that? Is it, when do you anticipate we'd be able to see about?
It would probably be in the early new year. I think there will be a situation where I would craft it, and then it would go through a bit of a review back and forth with yourselves, and potentially, depending upon whether I'm providing guidelines versus providing a more formal bylaw document situation, that might also then have to get further reviewed beyond. I know sometimes the lawyers like to get involved in things like that in other municipalities. So I guess it just depends on how your team is structured or how it's set up there.
Thank you very much.
But I can talk to our planners in the office that are typically the ones that handle that. That's Megan and RJ. I work with them closely, but I'll talk to them and find out their schedule specifically, and then we can kind of go from there for crafting.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Well, I think we're done. Thank you very much, Chelsea, for coming back.
If you do have any questions or comments for the report, please feel free to email them through. I noticed some grammatical and various things like that I want to fix up anyways. And then we'll get started on this. I'll talk to my colleague Megan later this week when she's in the office next. And then I'll be able to give you an update probably early next week as to more on the timing of things.
Oh, question.
Question?
Sorry, you're a bit of a slow processor. My question is a bit vague, but I was just wondering if you could think of any, or anybody in your office can think of a comparable site to this one. And that might be an interesting thing to note in the report.
I can't think of a comparable site in the sense of how it was used. In that this is very much connected to a time in tourism, which I would have loved to experience, to be honest, that kind of doesn't exist anymore. There are sites here in the Lower Mainland that are comparable in sort of layout and configuration in the sense, and here we have a former, or I guess it's still in use, psychiatric hospital that has a lot of cottages and bungalows around it, in addition to the actual main facility itself. That was sort of the design of psychiatric hospitals at that time in the earlier part of the 20th century. So we do have something that's similar in that sort of like main building, multiple cottage configuration, but not one that I can think of that, nothing in Alberta that I can think of either. Not one that I can think of that relates to how the site was used and how it was purpose built for that use, and the level of intactness that is still present. It doesn't ring a bell, and I can certainly have a bit more of a think on it, and I'll talk to my colleagues and think if they've encountered it in any of their past work. But I can certainly emphasize that more in the report itself, and add that information in there to just sort of include increase the recognition of why this is such an interesting site that Bowen Island has, that is, in my mind, not present elsewhere on the coast anywhere that I can think of.
Great. And I can't forget, someone suggested even they couldn't really think of anything in North America that was comparable. So it would be nice to have a reference, both, as you said, like you said, like, I can't remember how you described it, but like configuration, also recreational history or recreational heritage. It would be nice to have both of those threads.
Yeah, I can
Just
think
briefly, and like a couple of references that we can draw on in the future. That would be fabulous.
the only ones that I can sort of think of, but I've not seen them in person, is I know on the East Coast, like in the US, in New York State, I think it's called Chautauqua. There is sort of these resorts, destination resorts that you would go to, and you would, have a cottage and you might spend a whole week there or a whole month there. But those ones in my mind are usually associated with like lakes and things like that. So again, they're not quite the same as what you have on Bowen Island. They're closer than obviously the psychiatric hospital in that respect, but they're certainly not the same. But yeah, we'll do a bit of a poke around, and I know Chautauqua is still largely intact because it's used, but a lot of the other ones, and I'm thinking Shirkston Shores and some of the other ones that are on the East Coast or sort of central Ontario area, and maybe cottage country in that area. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there is anything that's from the same vintage and meets sort of a lot of the same parameters as what the Crippen Cottages in Bowen Island and that whole resort do elsewhere in Canada or even North America. I'm not quite sure. But yeah,
One of the islands up Cape Cod, I don't remember what those islands are, has a church cottage community that's very historic. Pardon? Nantucket. I think we're the other one. There's two, like Nantucket and anyways, you might worth. Also, I don't remember where I heard this, but also along the Union steamships lines on the coast here, there was one other community that did have cottages, and I just don't know where it was, whether it was.
okay.
So maybe Kathy Bailey saying maybe Soma Park. That's worth looking at some of that. In an image of one of those.
Yeah, because I know like there's all the there's comparable to an extent with regards to even like Britannia, but that was of course associated with the mine, but you had workers' cottages that were built, so there's like some similarities, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if I can, what other ones are out there that still exist and what their conditions are and yeah, because obviously tourism has shifted so much from how it was in the early part of the 20th century to now, so to speak. Um, but yeah, I can certainly add some of that context into the start of the report.
I have an unrelated question very quickly, and
Go for it.
just wanted to kind of pick your brain
Yeah.
on it. And that relates to I think we've recognized, council and certainly the commission has recognized the potential sensitivity of even having private property on a register, which has almost no hammers, and it's all, it's all good stuff. But people tend to think of a register that's approved by council as something like designation, and I won't be able to do anything to my
Mhm.
property or house or whatever. And so because we're sensitive, a lot of some of the conversation around this table has been, uh, have there been other similar communities, smaller communities where something more like an informal inventory or list has been adopted, short of a register, so there's not that same threat, but in some sense, it's still a list that the municipality can refer to if an application comes in or somebody wants to do something with their site. And we've had some discussion with staff here, but interesting if you've had any experience with that, any thoughts on that conundrum.
Yeah, so we worked when I was doing a lot of inventory work, it was predominantly based in Alberta. And what we worked through with Medicine Hat, which comes to mind, was we wrote, I think, over 100 SOSs for them by the time we were done. They are a big clay making town, so they had a lot of bricks, so their buildings withstood fires and various things like that, which was sort of good for them. And so what they chose to do, because again, yeah, there is always that concern with register or with designation. There is that fear that you're never going to be able to do anything to your building, and that's and I think that's just sort of like that initial understanding of it, but that's by no means not how we view it, in that it doesn't mean that that building cannot have anything done to it. It just has to be done in a sensitive way and in a smart way. So for what Medicine Hat did was that they flagged those properties in their database, so to speak. So when applications did come in, whether that would be for alterations or demolition, unfortunately, or things like that, they were able to then, I think in that instance, they put a hold on the permit and had a conversation then with the applicant about what was being done, particularly really when it was like something more along the lines of demolition. They would sort of want to have that discussion with the applicant prior to. But in that instance, that inventory by no means was like legal protection. It was just sort of recognition of the properties. Nothing in that community was protected until it was placed on, until the bylaw was done and it was placed on title for protection. So I can certainly have a think about what options there could be and let you know for similar sized communities, because yeah, you are very distinct in that respect and want to provide something that's sort of realistic for the community as it is, versus not something that we would implement here in Vancouver or Victoria and things like that.
And one of the issues that arose is whether the site in question was in a development permit area, which allows some staff review or so many building permits required. And
Mhm.
maybe that discussion with the owners wasn't appropriate. So anyway, it's worth we're seeing what they might have done in Medicine Hat and other areas.
Mhm, mhm.
Experiences.
Yeah. Because I think, see, we've done Medicine Hat, Vulcan, we've done a number of like heritage strategic plans for a lot of the communities in Alberta, and a number of years ago, the ones here in the Lower Mainland as well. So can certainly look at those and see how they proceeded forward and see if there's some information there that can be shared with the team.
Anything else from the members? Thank you very much, Chelsea, for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You all have a lovely day.
Dude.
Bye-bye.
Any other questions or comments? Now that we're off the call. Okay. So moving on to Snug Cove Design Guidelines update 5.1. That's Daniel. Welcome, Daniel.
So I wanted to come to give the Heritage Commission an update on the Snug Cove Design Guidelines. So we came to your July meeting, to bring those draft design guidelines and look for some feedback from you. And so since then, we've done, in the fall, we did a series of workshops, so in person and virtual with the public, and we invited Snug Cove property owners to come. And so we're now prepared to come actually on Monday to return to council with an actual bylaw to seek first reading of amendment bylaw to start the process to enact those guidelines. So we just published it yesterday, and you can see how we've incorporated comments from the Heritage Commission. So you gave us some great feedback on properties that weren't on a heritage register. So yeah, so previously the draft you saw said if it was on a list on community heritage register, it should be referred, which stays in, but we've added another guideline about retention of heritage details. So it says regardless of the site's inclusion on the heritage register, if a site includes known heritage elements, the retention of those elements is strongly encouraged. And then the massing, design, and finishes of a site that is adjacent to a heritage register site should also be sympathetic to the character defining elements of the adjacent heritage register site.
Sounds like all of the recommendations from the commission were incorporated in the.
Yeah, we definitely, like, those were our most concrete comments. I think we got back through the process and we definitely tried to build those into the guidelines.
I haven't seen a copy of the final version, so.
Yeah,
Just yet.
I can circulate that report. It's going to council, and then I'm happy to able to come back to a future one. So this is to go for first reading, to go for referral to the Islands Trust before coming back to council for second and third reading. So we're still open if you have additional comments. Yeah, we can even like come to a January meeting of the Heritage Commission, or February. I don't know what your next meeting is, but we can incorporate that, or we can take feedback electronically. Yeah, but just wanted to update the process.
Okay, that's great. Any other questions from? Nothing from me. Thanks very much.
All right.
So the next item is subcommittee reports, and I'm currently the chair of the subcommittee. So the draft work program for 2025 has a new section that I'm going to read from for the update to the committee, because much of that is the work of the subcommittee. So that section F 2024 progress report, which is attached to the minutes, and we could go through this in detail when we go over the work plan. But is everybody on that page? Scroll down from the minutes. Yeah, my agenda, I mean. So, a number of the tasks that we're conducting, which is researching and documenting new sites. So we established, as everybody recalls, an inventory subcommittee. That committee created the inventory tracker to document potential sites for further investigation. The committee reviewed archival materials and historic maps with Kathy Bailey's help. Thank you very much. To identify potential heritage resources island-wide. We adopted a research sequence, which had been Andrew's suggestion, based on neighborhoods and areas, and we ultimately identified Deep Bay as the first neighborhood to go into in detail. We also, at Owen's suggestion, implemented a GIS mapping platform as a tool for identification and evaluation of heritage resources. And we were able to align, Owen was able to align historic maps with BOMAP, which will be wonderful. And then we employed GIS to support fieldwork in Deep Bay to successfully match historic cottages with existing residents by kind of matching up the house footprints for addition to the informal inventory list. And maybe I can get Owen to give a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, so Deep Bay is trialing the technique to see whether it works. So we using historic archive sources identified 38 possible targets of historic buildings which may or may not be extant. And then we did a walk around, about half a dozen of us, was it? And added 24 assets to the inventory, which is great. So it was really useful, like has to be a combination of archive research and site visits. We had to go on ground truth, and we were quite confident that 24 of those are historic buildings and other features, and identified another 5 where we want to contact the landowners, the house owners, and just chat with them about whether there's any historic fabric in the inside, because we couldn't tell from the outside. We thought it's a successful technique and possibly going to move to Miller's Landing next.
Oh, and what else did this committee do? I'm not going to go through everything in this list because it's not all the inventory committee. We did have a few encounters with property owners, but didn't get into really that much detail when we were asked what we were doing. But that's certainly something you can't help encounter owners of homes, for example, if you're outside taking pictures and if you're looking at stuff, clipboards. It's premature to get any detail about where we're going with things.
But at some point, we do want to get really good photos of each property, don't we? So we're going to eventually need to contact all of them and ask for permission to come in and photograph the property.
And even in some of the ones we couldn't even beat the fences and shrubbery and that kind of thing. Very hard to get any kind of meaningful image, even to the outside of the homes. So ultimately, a part of the work plan is eventually, when the time is right, to contact property owners and ask them if we can meet with them, attend on site, take photos, ask them to provide information they know about their homes. My wife and I happen to be out in the by the old in Galbraith Way, by the old dock, and one of the homes there, which has history. The owner was right there and talked quite proudly about the house, and was happy to talk further about it. The house has had some changes over the years, but so it's an example of how this needs to happen for us to get a full idea of what's going. One of the things that on the awareness side of our group is the idea of ultimately coming up with, the idea of, we talked about the idea of places that matter, and that seemed to resonate with the team. And that's probably a better public facing approach than talking about inventory, which is even that is daunting. We will have our working document will be the inventory, or even a pre-inventory. It's our list. That is our tracking list. But ultimately, what's different from something like Irene Howard's book on the history of Bowen Island up until 76 or 78, is this going to be Places That Matter is going to be a place-based history of Bowen Island. So it's going to be focused on the places and sometimes the structures and the buildings and the legacies. And that could be the basis of neighborhood by neighborhood inclusions in the undercurrent, for example. And it could also be ultimately maybe a museum book project. I'm not to put museum on the but maybe it's a grant basis for a book project where this is just now Bowen Island, Places That Matter, a place-based history of Bowen Island. And that just raises the profile of all those places. So I think that's a key thing that we identified. And that's the main stuff.
Champions. We like to identify a champion
Champions.
for each neighborhood, just to get the local knowledge, stuff that might not be visible on the surface. Is we try and identify someone from each neighborhood who got information in their head that we can extract.
And for Deep Bay, we feel we may have already identified a champion almost by accident because we had a very productive conversation with that person during the library's old general store 100th anniversary. So sometimes these things just happen. So things are moving along. So that's my report on the inventory subcommittee. Any questions about the subcommittee work? All right. So next, and I don't believe we have any report from the program and education subcommittee because I don't believe they've met or done anything. So, but I'm thinking that either we strike that committee from the list or the committee consider doing some work in 2025 because some of that work I did personally, kind of by default. Like being on the library 100th anniversary committee and working with the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society. But I don't think I want you just being the point person for all that public education work. So I'm just throwing that out. Otherwise, I'm doing everything, which is all right. All right. So that's subcommittee reports. And now we have, I guess, item 7 is the Heritage Commission work plan. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at the work plan before the meeting today? Yes. Okay. So I don't know if we need to go through this line by line. What I did is you'll notice some tracking. And basically what I did is I saved the 2024 document, saved as, and then I turned on tracking and any changes that I'm suggesting from the last version are there for everybody, just to make it easy for everybody to see what those changes are. And there's not a lot of them, but removed a few things, added some things for clarity or things that seem to be missing. But the main change is the actual progress report itself that I've been reading from. And the reason that the progress report's been added is that one of the objectives in the work plan was to, the wording is actually from the bullet just above C, process on page 2, which says annual evaluation and reporting on the progress of the plan. So I thought that was screaming out for a second that actually the progress of the plan. So that's the purpose, and that's the main additional. So I'll shut up now. Any comments or changes that unless you want me to go through it line by line, any changes that or questions from the members? So we need to make changes. Sarah could display the document on the screen and we could edit it, collect. Not hearing anything. So does that mean that nobody has any edits or changes? Is everybody good?
I thought it was good. Thank you for continuing to compile and work on it. I don't have anything to contribute to it. It looks good as it is, I think.
Okay, and is the update comprehensive? I'm sure I missed some things that we did during the year, but it's pretty impressive as it is. Okay, well then the only part remaining is on this is H cost estimate, because although it's looking it was almost the best case scenario today talking with Chelsea, because they said they would look at including this part of the as part of their report for free, possibly, content on missing bylaws and what they look like. The reason I had put wanted to put something about the budget in there as if we needed to pay a consultant to do that, to help us do that work. So the short question is, should we plug something in there just in case we need to pay a consultant to do that? And then we're kind of guessing at, I didn't want to ask her a number because then she might go, okay, maybe they're willing to pay something. So, and we want to save, well, not even to spell any money, but I'm wondering if part of our recommendation should include a cost estimate and any idea of what that might be. I was thinking about throwing 5,000 in, for example.
And that's just for review of the one report.
It would be for adding to their report, what they see as missing heritage bylaws for heritage management in our current heritage bylaws at Bowen Island Municipality, and providing examples of appropriate bylaw wording for council to adopt.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that's not a huge piece of work. You know, we paid them just over 18,000 for the large report. This is not that large a piece of work. So I'm thinking of $2,000, $5,000. I have no idea. You know, I'm just pure, for me, it's pure guesswork at this point.
I mean, like it wouldn't be, like, it's not like it involves site visits, or anything, right? It's just
No.
compiling information, so I wouldn't have thought it would be
Yeah.
that expensive. And then additionally, like in terms of budget cycles. Oh, yeah, so we're in decent time for that, right? Like for submitting things.
I think so. I think in an email with,
May or
yeah.
something, that's gonna be.
but it's already in progress. So, you know, you can miss this.
Get it in there.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to schedule a Heritage Commission meeting for before the break, just to
Yeah,
make sure we have our oar in.
yeah.
And I believe our standard, there's a default budget that all the committees get. I think we had something like $500 in there or
I
something
think we
that
have
we spent.
a token for, like,
For heritage.
sign-in activities.
Yeah. And we used it all for
Probably
heritage.
put that in there. I don't know if that's really the case that we still have that.
Yeah, I think Steph said that it's kind of automatic. It's kind of a default budget. We never asked for it last year. It just arrived. But,
The signage is still in the work plan.
yes, and so we don't have a budget for signage either unless, well, here's an interesting thing, because I was looking at that too. And templates and things like that. Wouldn't that be not the commission's budget, but municipal works?
We talked about it, I remember now, we talked about it in relation to the Japanese bridge. That once it's built, we wanted to put a sign next to it that said what it was.
And maybe-
Obviously, that's not going ahead now, but would we want to put a sign next to the pagoda, or would that be public works? Would that be part of the budget of the actual pagoda?
The Japanese Canadian Legacy Society Memorial. It might not be a pagoda, but yeah. You know, so maybe a $5,000 budget would be a kind of a catch-all for a lot of stuff we might want to do. If we don't need it for consultancy, we could use it for.
We could put signs in.
I feel like Drew has something.
No,
Yeah.
that's already.
But would some of these things come out of public work, like putting up signs? Physically putting up a sign would be probably public works budget, would it not?
Typically, yeah.
But then the content for the sign and the design for it might be commission budget?
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah.
I
Okay,
feel like the signage for the bike park was rec money, but the thing is rec has money, like we like, they're a department with staff and, right, we aren't really a department with staff, so. Yeah, and I think we need to be super specific what we're asking for, right? I don't think we can say 5,000, we'll stay within that. I think we need to say we want this much for a consultant and this much for signage and this much for activities.
mhm.
And we may as well just put some money, some numbers in there because we have no idea. So 2 to 5 seems right for a consultant, 2 feels better.
And so right now, the way I've worded it is just, it's specific, but only for the consultant budget for doing the work we were just talking about. So we could also have, that could be a bullet. And then we could have bullets for signage. And then bullets for other public educational work.
Like Heritage Week,
Like a what?
Heritage Week.
Like Heritage Week.
Heritage Week is in here as well. Were we surprised how much it was going to cost to put a birthday card in undercurrent this year, and so we ended up not doing it?
We didn't have enough money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we want to put anything in undercurrent this year, next year?
Well,
Not to think I'd charge that much.
yeah, for the 101st anniversary of the library. But I'm sure we can use it. So we want to try to wordsmith this for approval, but then we'll have a completed work program for budget.
Well, they have budget requirements for anything else. And, you know, through expenses in the library repair. And, you know, we put some guidelines into what we felt was expected in terms of doing this. Consultant.
Yeah, I wonder,
Wonder.
that raises an issue because should we be flagging to the municipality outside of our own budget, what kind of things that they should be budgeting in their
Right,
their strategic plan, like repairs, so that, because they said we don't have money for it, so we're gonna take it to our annual retreat, figure out where the money might come from.
right.
Yeah, okay. So we need to craft some wording.
Really?
Well, it's not in the, I mean, I could craft some wording and forward it. We could approve the work, recommend that council approve the 2025 work plan, and I could put in some wording along the lines of what we suggested, but then you wouldn't, the commission members wouldn't have specifically approved that wording. Is that okay?
It's circulated.
I could circulate it. Okay,
I think the recommendations need to happen in here, don't they?
yeah, we'll recommend that council approve the 2025
Okay, so do we want to?
work plan. But my points have just been, we don't have the wording yet under G for cost estimates for the specific wording.
Right.
So do we have to craft that now?
I think it's best to have the document complete before you make a motion to
Okay,
have it approved.
okay. So can we get you to
Yeah.
type something up? Okay, so the first bullet would, so
Just give me 1 moment just quickly.
I can read you the first bullet because it's already on my screen. Okay, so this is,
Make the font really large. Okay, so.
I believe it's H, I think it's the section H, cost estimate. It's the heading.
So we're recommending that.
Well, actually, we're not at the recommendation yet.
Okay.
We're at G, cost estimate, so that
Oh,
completes the
the
work
other
plan.
one, I see.
And then we'll do the recommendation.
Okay.
Are you just wanting numbers to put into the?
Well, and the text, I mean, we just need the text of the section, so there'll be the numbers, but there'll be the wording around it, the bullet points. That's what I was, so,
So like bullet 1, $2,000 for a consultant, like that, you mean?
yeah, like, so what I have so far under H, cost estimate, so underneath schedule, you'll, if you scroll down.
I'll just
Under-
finish it.
And you'll see on the next page. H cost estimate.
Mhm.
So I started to, the last paragraph needs to be deleted, it's
Okay, we need
just,
to
it's
do
just a
this.
comment. Yeah.
no to.
Anyway, so then it would say, so that I'm gonna read you the first part, for the year 2025. A budget of $5,000 is requested for the purpose of consultant, for the purpose of, colon. And then the following bullets. Consultant, bullet one, consultant assistance, identifying and developing additional municipal heritage bylaws and or tools that Bowen Island municipality may wish to adopt in order to effectively manage heritage resources going forward. And then I think the next sentence can just be deleted.
Oh, okay.
And then bullet two,
No, it's not that way. You've got a lot of track changes happening here. To leave it.
for now, you know when it's come up.
Yeah.
Bullet two would be, signage and other interpretive materials, installation of, creation of signage and interpretive materials. Yeah, could be heritage signage, but I guess it's obvious. And then the third bullet would be heritage programming and education. Public, or I should say, public heritage promotion and education activities, including Heritage Week. And Heritage Week walking tours and other events.
Okay.
Okay.
And the inventory, any expenses, GIS that we should be thinking about. I know you're using free service, but
Yeah.
what about a drone sort of expense potentially?
I'm sure
Oh, Sarah?
it's all just done volunteer.
Per sentence for the year 2024, adopt a budget of a delete the XXXX and substitute 5,000.
I think it's just the way the changes are being tracked.
Oh, okay. And I thought of putting a number by each bullet, like a sub number, but I don't think we want to necessarily commit ourselves. Because we find out that the consultant stuff is 3,000. I'll make it 2,000. So I think, is that detailed enough, do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's your plan.
Okay, well, okay, so then we're on to recommendation.
Okay, so it's okay, so now I move on to recommendation.
Recommendation that that council adopt the Heritage Commission 2025 work plan and budget. I think that's all we need.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. I have a mover. Alyssa. Seconder. Helen. All in favor? Carried unanimous. Done. Last year we needed a workshop. And that was the first one. All right, so now we're on to Davies Orchard Heritage Revitalization, progress on that. From here, actually, here's the next two items, 7.3 library building repair updated as well. So Drew, thank you.
Hey, so we have an email from Jeffrey Fitzpatrick of the Metro Vancouver. So he's telling us that the work at Davies Orchard is nearing conclusion. The following items have been completed pending deficiency review: framing, skirting, roofing, insulation, wall panels, wood finishes, cabinetry, countertops, plumbing, electrical, and appliances. They have some outstanding tasks, including energizing the electrical service, removing a power pole and landscaping, and then addressing any deficiencies. Regional park staff continue to work with the Bowen Island Heritage Preservation Association, to support their move back into the museum and office cottages, once the project or as the project nears completion. And they're expecting a completion date of, or time for around just early 2025, and also expecting that the Davies Orchard would be reopened. Yeah, they're doing that same time, early 2025 for local and regional residents. Otherwise, there's a couple photos I can share. Do you guys want to see?
No, if we have time.
Oh, yeah, just one picture. Was I tried getting a meeting, not let me.
Oh, I didn't, if you just send them to me, I could just share them.
Okay,
I've had this, since the sound went, I haven't been able to get back on here.
Okay.
So something's better.
okay. I just wanted to see if there's an attachment. The PDF attached to what it's.
So just a point of clarification, and maybe this is a matter of getting back to Metro Parks, is I think our understanding was that there's the phase one was the cottages and the phase two was going to be the re-landscaping of the site. So it sounds like the public's going to get access to the site again, but the main landscaping phase probably won't have started yet. But maybe we'll get clarity if the landscape hasn't been completed, when do they expect starting that and completing that phase of the process? That would be really helpful.
Sure.
Just to follow up even by email would be.
Sure. They did mention that as one of their,
They mentioned landscaping, but it's hard to know whether that's the full phase two or.
right.
We were told that the cottage revitalization would take up the entire budget. And so the landscaping was sort of like down the road of it.
That's one of the reasons I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they seem to think there's not much, once they get cottages back up, they'll have to go find another pot of money to carry on any other work.
Do you want me to just tell them what we're looking at?
Sure, yeah, so, yeah, thanks for pointing out, so yeah, there's some recent photos, you can see some of the modern additions, you can see the metal railing that's sort of comes up higher than the wood railing that, meets current standards. I don't really, yeah, much else to say without being a building inspector, but. And have some interior shots there.
They're gonna be used for.
I'm not sure which one specifically that we're looking at, but, where it is.
Which one? Can't even identify it. It doesn't ring a bell. I must. It's the other one of Bronte's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fit two there.
This has got that
But that
funny-
looks like
it's
our
got a funny
office.
front to it.
this one looks like the office, number 20.
Well, there's two, yeah. But where's the tree? Yeah, the tree.
But yeah, that's the one next to it. That's,
You can see the fence for the baseball field
Yeah.
up in the distance there. Okay,
right.
any other questions, comments? Okay, Drew, you're up again.
Sure.
I do have one.
Oh,
thing to say, but you're gonna give me 5 seconds at least. It'll take me a while. You might point out to them that the Heritage Week theme this year is pastimes in past times. So if that's when they're reopening, it might be a good week to do it, right?
Good, yeah. Yeah, and their early 2025 would be further down the road. than-
Yeah,
We're not talking January 3rd.
probably not.
Yeah, so yeah, that might be a good.
So- That's, I mean, they can look it up, but it's Feb 17th, to 23rd. Past times in past.
Yeah, I know, it's, yeah,
Past times in past, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So this isn't on the agenda, but it occurs to me that, I recall last year we started planning for Heritage Week.
Yeah,
Prior to the Christmas break, because there's a lot of things to get in place. So I'm wondering if we could have some volunteers around the table to actually start thinking about that and and getting some things in place.
I like Melissa's idea, we could turn it all about the cabins. Because have our tea on the deck and have, you know, we actually were moved in with all our our stuff, it'd be great.
Even if we didn't, it still would be, if they've opened up the site, it would be great.
It would be, yeah,
All right, sounds like a good one to me.
yeah, so.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'd certainly be well involved, because I will be unloading the trucks and bringing our stuff in, so.
Okay, so you want to lead that, would you?
It'd be really nice to get that date finalized, or at least promised, and then see.
So Helen, can we put your name down as leading that
Yeah, I can,
committee, that
yeah,
ad hoc committee?
yes,
And who wants to join Helen?
Yeah.
Kathy?
thanks.
Oh, Melissa,
Super.
Andrew, Kathy,
Good. Okay. Lovely.
great. Robust committee, program and education committee. All right. That makes me very happy.
So you're moving into one of the cabins.
I didn't,
Who is moving into the cabins?
we have their office in number 20.
Who's we?
From
the
Heritage.
Heritage Association, the Preservation Heritage. Well, it's got way too long a name, and our little museum, we've got a museum down at number 10. So all our things are in 2 big storage units at the moment. And Metro did say they'd send their workers and help unload everything, because our little committee is all over age 60, so we need some help. But they said they would help us put it in, but it's gonna be time consuming, and it'll be a huge deal once everything's back in place. So we can open up the museum again and take little tours and.
So if you need help from commission members, but
Yeah.
to help lifting and stuff, I'm sure.
I've got an extra pair of hands.
Yeah.
Need to day.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know.
Great, will do.
All right.
So Drew, if you could emphasize that we have now agreed that that is when they're gonna be done.
Okay.
So
Yes.
there was much enthusiasm around the table of
Yeah.
completing the project. Heritage Week.
Heritage Week.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Oh, and if not, it's a big summer. In fact, we might want to consider something like the library 100th anniversary as a summer event and to continue on that celebration. So anyway, just throw things out. Okay, any more on 7.2? Okay, 7.3 library building repair update. Drew Backen.
so I have a update that just came from Paul, Public Works, Patrick Casson. So they said that they have a quote from a local contractor, which is Coastal Edge Renovations, to replace 4 beams in the library building, which 2 in the front and 2 in the back. That quote is for $17,900. Paul also reviewed with another local contractor, which is Custom Coastal Homes, and the contractor was Jeff Dempsey. He indicated that he thought the beams were just decorative and not load bearing, and so he proposed a less expensive solution of just replacing the beam ends, but he didn't provide a quote. So the main thing right now, Paul is going to investigate further about the beams to confirm whether those are load bearing beams, because that's a big deal.
Big difference in cost.
Yeah.
Because if it's a load bearing beam and the whole beam has to be replaced, then probably the library has to close for a period.
Surely.
For that work to be done. So, yeah, so there's impacts there. Do we know whether that work is going to be included in council's 2025 strategic plan?
I don't know.
Can we find that out?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
When are the budgets due?
When are budgets due?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
March.
I'm not able. Yes.
I thought they went before council in March.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we need, maybe we should have a separate recommendation that council recommend the council include the cost of repairing the rotten beams of the old general store library in its 2025 strategic plan.
Yeah, I know.
Council includes the cost of
The cost of repairs. The library. And it's in the 2025 strategic plan. Have a mover? Andrew, second? Alyssa? All in favor? Carried unanimously. And that brings to a close the conclusion of the agenda, unless anybody has anything else to add to the agenda. Be here for question periods. Okay, so we're all done. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
It's just.
Date for the next meeting? We could do.
We could at least agree on them.
Yeah, we can probably, Sarah could probably poll us for a specific date, but maybe we want to meet by. We need to meet for Heritage Week.
Yes. These meets in January.
so sometime in January.
Yeah. But let's not say the first week in January, please.
I'm away until the 22nd,
Okay, so it's gonna have to be after the 22nd.
unless I get
But maybe the committee can. Subcommittee can
Yeah.
do the footwork on Heritage Week, and then it's ready to come back to the commission for the thumbs up. Okay. We're done now. All right. I will move to adjourn the Heritage Commission meeting at 2:23 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting. We got out of here 8 minutes early.
Sarah, can we unlike, please?
What did everybody do during their summer holidays?